Hey guys, Daniela here, and welcome to another episode of the Spa Marketing Made Easy podcast. This is a really fun interview that I just had with my good friend Melanie Bundock. She is a visualization manifestation master, and she shares some really amazing stories of things that she has manifested in her life through visualization, through creating vision boards. And if you are a skeptic, if you're someone who's more logical, not so much into the woo-woo stuff, I encourage you to listen. I encourage you to be open, because my biggest lesson, I was actually in that space before too. I'm married to an engineer. I like to have very specific steps, very specific plans of action into reaching my goals and how I'm going to do those things. And I'm not someone that believes if you build it, they will come. But the way that Melanie describes this work that she's been doing and how it's happened to her, it's so different. And it's not just, cut out a picture, put it on your vision board, and, you're magically going to have a Ferrari in your garage. It's really about taking action, keeping that positive mindset, so you really have nothing to lose. So I encourage you guys to listen. It's an awesome interview. It's very positive if you're needing some inspiration or a little bit of uplifting, something to lift you up for the day. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and play that interview. All right, you guys, I am here with my good friend, Melanie Bundock. Is that how you say your last name? I always see it written and I've never said it aloud.
Yes, that's right. You've said it perfectly.
Wonderful. So we are going to talk about vision boarding. We're going to talk about manifestation. We're going to talk about all this woo-woo stuff that maybe a year or two ago, you would have thought that I would never have that coming out of my mouth, since I'm such a spreadsheet kind of girl. But as you guys know, I've been dipping my toe into this world of woo-woo because why not, And it's really amazing the different outcomes and the different things that you can create when you set a clear intention. So Melanie is an expert when it comes to manifestation. She has had so many stories, and we're going to get into some of those stories today, but so many stories of just like, those situations when you're like, that can't be a coincidence. That's like your life kind of, isn't it? So why don't you tell us a little bit about how you got into the world of manifestation, vision boarding, all of these kind of just really interesting things.
Okay. Hi. Well, thank you so much for having me, Daniela. I think I probably need to take you back. Let's say how many years, just over 14 years ago now, when I was pregnant with my son. And I was really not into this woo-woo stuff. I, just discovered I was pregnant, and I didn't really even have a vision for childbirth or anything like that. And it sounds a bit bizarre because people don't really. And all I knew was that I was having a baby, and all of a sudden, it's a huge thing. But my mother had me by cesarean, and my brother as well. And for me, that was quite a normal course of action. And I thought, the thought of childbirth just freaks me out. I'll just do what my mum did, and I'm going to have cesarean. And because you hear all these horror stories. But then I discovered a book. I don't believe in any coincidence. Things fall into your path for a reason. And the book was called The Gentle Birth Method. And in this book, it talked about yoga and nutrition and all the things you need to do to look after yourself while you're pregnant. So it all seemed very sensible. But there was also a bit at the end of the book, there was like a guided visualization and a CD that you could also order to listen to this visualization. And that's what I started to do when I was on maternity leave. I just put the CD on every afternoon and I visualized the sort of birth I wanted. And by this time, I was doing yoga and I had overhauled my nutrition. And I was really, really into now this whole natural childbirth. And I also wrote out a birth plan for myself, the sort of birth that I wanted. And that included things like a water birth, drug-free, just a really gentle, positive birth experience. And the funny thing was, that's exactly what I ended up getting. I had visualized this dream birth, this birth that, that most people don't experience. And I think pretty much out of all my friends, I was like, it was, don't get me wrong, it was painful and it was tough. But I remember the moment I held my son in my arms, I think, God, it wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. And I did exactly the same when I had my daughter a couple of years later. And that was an even easier experience. It was just amazing. So that was my first step into visualization, just visualizing a positive childbirth experience. And I didn't really think about it again after that. I just kind of just put it away again. And with hindsight now, I wish I'd visualized a child who slept through the night.
Oh, yes.
Everything that they were presented and didn't have tantrums. But I didn't really think about it then. I'd had this positive childbirth and that was that. But then as my children, because this does tie in a lot for my children, because children do change your life, but this was really how I got into it, because I was still working a full-time corporate career back then. I went back to work full-time after having my son, and then when I had my daughter, it was pretty much full-time. I went back in the office 3 days a week, and for flexi working, I was allowed to do 2 days from home, but it was still in effect a full-time job. But at that time, all I wanted was to be at home with my children. I didn't want to be commuting into London anymore. And my big desire then was to, my vision was to stay at home with my children. Mm-hmm. I was also really quite interested in alternative therapies at this time. And I thought about retraining as a reflexologist and a Reiki practitioner. And that's what I did. So I did that alongside, when my children were very little. I just dabbled in it. I trained in these therapies because I've always loved these alternative therapies. And I remember when I had to go back to work after my daughter, I was back for about a year. And all I could think was, I just want to be at home with my children. So the universe quickly answered my request and I got made redundant from my corporate career. And I was absolutely over the moon. I was so happy. But this was the other thing. So this is when we kind of really go into visualization here. That year, I had read The Secret. And I think we were about 2008 or 2009 there. So it hadn't been out that long. And I read The Secret. And
what was your impression of it? Because for me, when I read The Secret, I was like, when I saw the movie, I was like, this is so cheesy. And I know it like brought some, but I'm like, how can you just create? And I think a lot of people maybe feel this way and don't understand the power of visualization yet, because The Secret had this positive and negative impact, because you see the guy like, I put a picture of a Ferrari on my vision board and then, all of a sudden it's in my garage. I think there's some in between.
Yes.
That has to happen.
Oh, totally. Yeah. And it was cheesy, but the thing was, I didn't want a Ferrari. I wanted to stay at home with my children. And I think this is when The Secret works, when you focus on something you truly, truly want, when you focus on your heart's desires. And that's what I teach, my students, that there's no point putting a Ferrari on your vision board unless it's your heart's desire and your number one, oh my God, I really want a Ferrari. Then yeah, go for it. Stick a Ferrari on your vision board. But for me, my absolute burning desire was to stay at home with my children, to be able to, my son was going to be starting school fairly soon. I wanted to take him to school. I wanted to pick him up. I wanted to go to all the sports events. But I knew that I also wanted a career. I needed something to keep me occupied. And that's why I thought, maybe I could just become a work from home therapist. I could start up a practice here. And that's exactly what I did. But I didn't feel brave enough to just leave my job. So the desire was absolutely there. Every day I'd drive to work, leave my children, but I just wish I was at home with my children. But so here's the funny thing. This is when it starts to get a little bit woo-woo now. So I'm going to go into my first story, if that's okay. And all I could think of at the time was, after having read The Secret, you asked me, what did I think when I read it? I was just like, wow, I'm going to give this a go. What have I got to lose? I could have thought, what nonsense, and just tossed the book in the dustbin, which I think many people did. But I thought, what have I got to lose? What is it I really want right now? And, I got focused. So this is where my focus went. I kind of got it into my head that I needed, I put the figure on it as £20,000 that I needed in order to feel like I had enough money under my belt to start my own business, to give me a few months so I could just get started and not
have the financial stress.
Yeah. And so I limited myself, and I do feel like I limited myself at £20,000, which is I think about $35,000, maybe a bit more, maybe a bit less. It seemed like that's a decent amount of money that I could manifest. So I literally put this request up to universe. I would love £20,000 to come to me, and don't care where it comes from. Now, here's the thing. So this is the first ingredient of manifestation. You need to know what you want. So it's quite clear. I want £20,000 and I want to stay at home with my children. And then you're going to have to start looking for ways in which this can come to you. Now, unfortunately, you can't just, I think Jim Carrey famously quoted that you can't just go visualize, then sit back and eat a sandwich and just wait for the stuff to come. You've then got to take some action. Now, I didn't have an online business or anything at that point. The only way that I could see the money coming to me was by going on a game show. That was literally the only way. That or, a lottery win. And so when I was still at my corporate career, I used to drive past these TV studios every single day where Who Wants to Be a Millionaire was filmed. And it was a game show that I had watched for years. And I'd always thought, I'd love to be a contestant on that show. And the way they used to, on the game show, you used to have to ring a phone number to apply to be a contestant. I remember countless times I'd dial, leave my name address, but I never got a call back. But they had kind of changed the whole process on how they selected contestants. So I went on the website and I did some research. How do you become a contestant? And anyway, I applied, and anyway, to cut a really long story short, I got the call to be on the show. And because here's the thing. So when I was driving past the studios every single day, I visualized being on the show, sat in front of the game show host, and I felt the sensations of what it'd feel like to be on the show. I'm a Pisces. I'm a really natural daydreamer. And even driving in my car, driving past the studios, I felt nervous. This vision in my head of being on the show, it felt like I was already there. And so anyway, I got on the show and I won £20,000.
Oh my gosh. But that's the key, isn't it? That you actually feel those things instead of just cutting out a piece of paper, putting it on a vision board or visualizing it in your brain. You're actually feeling it, like how you would when you have a very realistic dream or something that your brain, is that what you're saying?
Absolutely. I'll be honest with you, I hadn't made a vision board at this time. My vision board was driving past the studio every day, and it was my very active imagination. The vision was very vivid in my head. And, I'll come to this later, that it's not always 100% necessary to make a vision board, but what is essential is to have the vision and to be clear on what it is you want. And once you've got that vision, you can then lock that into your mind. You can make a little movie around it, and you can really feel the feelings and the emotions around, whatever it is you want to manifest. So, yeah.
Okay. And I know you have another story. So you got to stay home with your kids.
I did. So I got my business off the ground, and so my vision really at that time, 10 years ago, was to just be at home with my children. I didn't, that just brought me enough fulfillment. That was more than enough for me to be able to, start up my little business, to get my website up and running. That was my first step into becoming self-employed and working for myself. I had no idea about running a business or anything like that. So I would say that was pretty much the vision that carried me through the next 6 or 7 years, that I was perfectly content with having my business at home and the number of clients that I did. And that was really my vision then. So I'll take you to the next step of the vision in a minute. But yeah, let's...
So I have a question there, because a lot of our listeners are solo estheticians, and they are probably envisioning, what they want. A lot of them probably want to work part-time so they can be with their kids. They want a career that's fulfilling. So when you were actually seeing your patients out of your home, were you visualizing your business goals or what you wanted to create, or were you visualizing kind of like your day-to-day, what the day would go like?
Yes, to a certain extent, that I knew that I would actually, funny, and one of the things that I did was I would actually carve out time in my diary that I want this filled with clients. Even if I didn't have any bookings in, I never left the space vacant. I literally, the invitation was there. So think, right, okay, today I want to see 3 clients, and I would put that time in my diary. And more often than not, that time would be filled because I already had that time put aside for my clients. And obviously the beauty of being working for yourself is actually, do you know what? This day I'm having lunch with a friend. This day I've got this toddler group. This day I'm doing this. So I would, even to this day, be meticulous with carving out time in my diary for clients. And it kind of almost looks like your diary is packed out already. Obviously, when the day comes and perhaps you don't have a booking, or you might only have 1 or 2 instead of 3, then you've got some time free. But I think, putting that time, that is sending us out a signal to the universe to say, I want a full diary.
So you talked about the famous quote by Jim Carrey, and he's kind of known for writing himself that $1 million check and keeping it in his wallet.
Yes.
But he said, you can't just sit back and eat a sandwich. You have to take action. So what kind of actions were you taking? I know the visualization, but especially when it comes to clients, you can't just sit in your office, put a note in your diary and say, okay, this is where, I'm going to see clients. How did you take action to create that as well?
Thing is, I always knew what worked for me. So if I'd had even now, I know what worked for me then. And that for me was actually going out to local networking meetings. I would go out there, make myself known as the reflexologist. And at that time, my specialism was to help women through all the stages of pregnancy and conception, either getting pregnant, during pregnancy, post-pregnancy. That was my target audience. And I would do talks, local, where I knew those people would be. I would definitely go to networking meetings because that's how I always got the referrals. I knew what worked for me. I would ask, encourage you, what's worked for you in the past, and just do more of that. Networking, getting a community with other people, bouncing ideas off off other people as well. It's going to be different methods for different people. I held pamper evenings at the school because I was associated with the school, then got lots of the school mums in as clients as well. So it's just knowing who your customers are, I think, is key, and just zoning in on the people that are going to become clients.
And I love that you're so specialized, and we see that a lot in spa, and I say often the brand that does everything is the brand that does nothing. So there's so many estheticians and spa industry professionals that feel like they have to offer, their ideal client is everyone because everyone has skin. But the thing is, the more specialized you get, the more people you can get coming into you, and you can really target, you can find those other businesses and those other, you know, partners that you can network with to get people in. So I love that. So that really, I think that that makes this visualization thing for people like me who maybe saw The Secret and kind of tossed it aside as like, this is crazy. When you really, I do believe that energy flows where attention goes, or whatever that saying is. And so when you are really focused on your goal and you are visualizing it and you are really putting that intention out there, but you're also taking action and putting yourself in the right place, that's what makes the big difference. That's what it's getting hyper focused on these things.
Focus. Absolutely. Focus on your vision and what you want, and then the action steps that are going to, get you what you want. So 10 years ago, that I was super clear in my focus. I just wanted to stay at home with my children, and that's exactly what I got. And I did as much as I could with the time that I had, and I was perfectly happy.
So when did you get to a place, when was your turning point that you realized that you had a bigger vision, that there was more that you wanted for yourself?
Okay. So, just get a little bit personal with you, that I actually separated from my husband, about 3 years ago now. But there was a time leading up to that when things weren't great, and I knew that I had to drastically change the way I wanted to work in order to support that vision for myself. I knew that it was coming, being a single parent, not usually something people stick on their vision board, becoming a single parent, but I was then kind of at a bit of a crossroads. I thought, well, yes, I was happy, but I wasn't earning anywhere near enough in able to support a mortgage on my own, to raise 2 children, to give them everything that I wanted them to have. And because I wanted them, not in a spoiled way, but I wanted them to have everything. I didn't want to have my mum's a single parent, and we, can't afford anything, growing up with any of that. I thought, absolutely no way is that happening. So for me, it was one of 2 things. It was either rapidly change my business and do something very, very different, or it was going to have to be going back to my corporate job again. And I'll be honest with you, I absolutely contemplated that. I thought to myself, that was kind of the easy option, a stable income, regular paychecks, good paychecks, but at the cost of getting up really early in the morning, sending my children off to a childminder, not seeing them till it was bedtime again. So I literally had that vision for, I don't know, a few hours. But it was then, okay, what can I do now to grow my business? What can I do to, scale my business, to do things differently? And my vision then was just like, well, how could, because I also ventured into tapping, emotional freedom technique at this stage. And I pretty much left the other therapies behind. So already at this time, I was seeing most of my clients online via Skype. And that already opened up my client base hugely, that I wasn't just restricted to people coming to see me face to face anymore. Now the world was my oyster. I could literally have clients from anywhere in the world. So that was my first part of my vision. And I remember it very clearly. It was December 2014. And I said to myself, I'm ready to go big now. I want to scale my business. I want to go global. And I remember New Year's Eve, I was just writing out my intentions and all the things I wanted for my business. This was visioning all over again. This was, self-employed Mel version 2.0. What do I want next? And as I was writing, I was kind of like beginning to scare myself a bit. Oh my God, this vision I have is huge. Then it's kind of like the voice creeps in, who are you to be wanting, all these big things, who do you think you are? But my vision was, I want to go global. I want to have clients all over the world. And I had no idea how it was going to happen. But in 2015, live streaming became a thing, and there was an app called Periscope. I don't know if you ever used that or heard.
I heard of it, but I was not so for me in my business, I've never been a big social media person. I feel like I'm very private in my personal life. And so when I started my business, really, and I owe everything in my business to social media and to Facebook ads. But it was really like I had a Facebook page that I never posted on. I was just one of those like peepers that would watch other people post, but I really had to learn how to put myself out there. So it was a long time before I did live video. It took me a while. So I knew all about Periscope. I heard everybody talking about it, but that was not anywhere that I was going to go.
So I heard about this app called Periscope, and I started to watch a few people on it. And I thought, God, I really love the idea of this because, rewind, I haven't mentioned this, but I'd done a journalism degree. So I will actually tie back to this, but I'd always loved being in front of the camera. My vision was actually to be a TV presenter. I worked at the BBC when I first left university. And so when this app came along, it was like, oh my goodness, I can literally press broadcast and I'm beaming to the entire world. But it was linked to my Twitter account. And I must admit, I was a bit anonymous on Twitter. So I was broadcasting to people who didn't know me. And I would talk about personal development issues. I would talk about, things around success and limiting beliefs and all the things I was interested in. It was just a fun platform where people engaged with you. And then I started doing my tapping videos as well because it was visual. People could tap along with me. They could get instant results. And I did that for quite a few months and built up quite a large following on Periscope. And it was great. And then the following year, I'd been live streaming for about a year. And this was how I was getting my international clients in. I was saying, right, book me for a session, come to my website. And my calendar was getting booked up with clients from all over the world. So already my vision to go global had happened through this app called Periscope. And so when I set that intention, I didn't even know about Periscope, but it was literally about 6 months later that my wish to go global had happened. And then I started to think about things like developing an online course. How could that work? And then the following year, it's 2016, I developed my first online course. This is when I kind of really could see the potential of, wow, I could create one digital product and lots and lots and lots of people could buy it. So it's like do the work once and sell it. And this, because when I started to get really excited, the vision for my business went kind of from pretty kind of small, being a stay-at-home mum to like global to like, oh my goodness, where could I take this? The sky is the limit. So now I would say I'm a kind of self-employed Mel version 3.0. And it's, where do I want to take this now? And it's just literally back to the drawing board again. And what do I want? So this year I've created Big Vision TV, where I've fulfilled that 20-year vision of having my own talk show. So every week I get to interview, inspirational people from all over the world. And I'm just having fun with that. And who knows where that will take me to. But right now I've no attachment to where that's going to go other than the fact that every week I'm producing content that is going to inspire people to think about their own vision for their lives and their business and their happiness and where they want to live and, all those things. So that's my kind of big thing now, that I want to help people to expand their own visions as to what's possible for their life and their business and their families, because, there really are no limits. The only limits that that arise are the ones that we put upon ourselves when we stand in our own way.
That's so beautiful and so amazing. And we'll be sure to include the links to Big Vision TV for all of our listeners to check that out. But one thing I want to really, really want you guys listening to understand is that the sky is the limit for you as an esthetician. You can have multiple streams of income. That's one thing that I really, really want you guys to understand is like, I was just doing an interview with Sarah Drury for the podcast, and she was a cosmetologist, and her husband lost his job, and she had a similar, she wasn't a single mom, but she was in a place where, all right, I've got to really make some money here. And I say this because the average esthetician in the United States, it's about $30,000 a year, which is very challenging to live on, especially if you have a family. And there are plenty who make more than that. There's plenty that make $250,000 a year. But it's just one of those things where we set our own limiting beliefs and we believe, oh, I'm not going to have enough clients, or I have to only make money doing facials. But Sarah, who I was interviewing, she made an online course for teaching her clients how to do makeup, how to do a smoky eye, how to, clean your brushes, how to all these different things. And it was a pretty inexpensive course, but it's just another way. And it's similar to kind of your story of like, how can I create my deepest desire, which is to be able to stay home with my kids, but still be able to support them so that they can never want for anything. Because yes, you could get a corporate job, but how is that the best thing for your children? For some people it is, because they're fulfilling their truth.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've got, I'm not saying anything against, mothers to do that at all, because they're do that and they love it. And, they are.
And that makes them a better mom because
Absolutely.
They're being true to themselves. But if you're being called to be home with your children, and that's what there are so many truths, and we are the only ones that know our own truth. So I think that that's really a beautiful thing. And I hope that the listeners are really getting like, don't limit yourself. Allow your vision to be big. And if it's not, it's okay. Just go through that process and then allow it to grow and expand as you grow and expand.
Yeah. So let me just share another kind of fun story, which is kind of unrelated to any of this. And again, it's about not limiting yourself and focusing on what you want. Now, so it was kind of, again, around a similar time, back to 2015 here. And I remember my daughter, her number one goal was to go to Disney World in Florida. A lot of her friends were going, and she was like, oh, Mummy, I want to go to Disneyland. I really want to go to Disneyland. And, from the UK to do the theme parks properly is a pretty expensive trip. The theme park tickets alone were
hundreds of dollars.
Yes, yeah. And I think if you're a US citizen, it's cheaper. But for us Brits coming abroad, we were looking at the best part of £10,000 for this holiday. Now, my ex-husband at the time, this was another stumbling block we had. He hated theme parks. There was nothing, he just couldn't.
So he's your ex-husband and he hates theme parks, and your daughter wants you to go as a family.
Exactly, yeah. So there's a few obstacles there. But I must admit, it kind of took me back to when I was a child. And I remember saying to my parents, I really want to go to Disneyland. And my mum and dad saying, we can't really afford it. So I never got to go. And so when my daughter said it, I never said to her, look, your dad doesn't like theme parks. It's really expensive. Can't really afford it. So all I said to her was, look, I can't tell you when we're going to go, but I promise you one day we will go. And I said, look, why don't we make a vision board? That would be, a fun afternoon activity. So that's exactly what we did. And I can remember exactly when we did it, because I remember I shared it on my Facebook page, and it was March 2015. My daughter and I sat for the afternoon, and we'd been to the travel agent. We'd got some brochures. We'd cut out the pictures, and I actually even have it here. And I know audio listeners won't be able to hear, but this was the actual vision board she made, and she wanted to go to the Wizarding World of Harry Potter in Universal Studios. She wanted to swim with the dolphins I can't remember that. There's a picture up here, swimming with the dolphins. On the back she put Mickey and Minnie. This was her work. You'll see the edges are very rough and they're like an 8-year-old scissor cutting there. This was her vision board. And so we made it. And here's this is just how I kind of raise my children. I always get them to visualize every night. I get them to visualize before they go to sleep something they want. So my son, his vision was to be a mascot for Tottenham Hotspurs, one of the biggest football teams here, big football supporter. So I would say, Ben, you go visualize being a Spurs mascot, walking out onto the pitch with your favorite player. Bonnie, you go and visualize being at Disney World. And she was always watching YouTube videos of Disney, so she knew the theme parks inside out. And I was actually working with a business coach at the time. I spent a lot of money to work with a business coach. And, every 3 months we'd have these hot seat experiences. Anyway, I got a turn in the hot seat and he said, right, okay, let's focus on your business goals. What do you want to do? What are we working on? And I said, look, can I be honest with you? I just want to make enough money in my business so I can take my kids to Disney World. So she said, okay, fine. And I felt so stupid saying that because there were people focusing on, the metrics of their business and KPIs and EPLs. And I thought,
can I just say, I was working with a business coach and I said, all I want is to learn how to get my daughter to sleep. Because if I can get her to sleep through the night, then I can actually work on my business. So I get it.
And you know what? And that is what we should be focusing on, what we actually want and not I've got goosebumps as I said that. Because in my adult rational brain, the only way I could take my kids to Disney was to have a sudden, huge amount of income that I could just pay for it and I could just book it. And she then took me through a very similar experience, like I did with the whole Disney, with the whole Who Wants to Be a Millionaire thing. She took me on board seriously, and she didn't. I was half expecting her to say, well, Mel, if you do a webinar and then if you kind of work on your Facebook ads and then blah, 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 you will then earn enough money to take kids to Disneyland. She didn't. She got me to focus on, okay, she said, I want to close your eyes and I want you to visualize, it's your first day in Florida. What are you doing? So I closed my eyes and said, look, the kids are so excited. We've flung open the door of our hotel. The kids are running and they're jumping on the bed because they're so excited to be here. She said, okay, now you're walking through the gates. She said, tell me what you're wearing. And I thought, oh, okay. I'm wearing white shorts. It's really hot and humid. And funny enough, I did actually see my husband there as well. I saw us going in as a family. And I could picture it very clearly, and I talked through, the experience, and that was it. That's my hot seat call. So I was like, right, okay, then. So just put it out there. So this is all kind of 2015. I must admit, I was obsessed about Disney World. I was constantly looking online, see if there's any special offers, any deals on. That vision was always there. Every night I got my daughter to visualize it, and my goal was actually to have made enough money in my business so that I could have booked it by Christmas, so that on Christmas morning I could say to the kids, hey kids, we're going to, that whole thing that you see when the kids open up the thing and then we go to Disneyland. That was my kind of vision. And I must admit, I put so much attachment to it all happening by Christmas. But that was actually the year that my husband and I did separate. And so it didn't look like it was going to be happening anytime soon. And I remember my daughter saying to me, because children are very powerful manifestors. My daughter said to me, Mum, where are we going on holiday next year? I said, oh, I don't know yet. I haven't decided. And she looked me in the eye. She said, we're going to Disneyland in 2016. I said, okay, great. And that was that. So anyway, Christmas got closer and closer and it didn't look like it was happening. And Christmas Day came and went, and I couldn't afford to book a trip to Disneyland. So on the 4th of January, I got a phone call from Disney head office in the UK. And it was actually a message on my cell phone. And part of me kind of thought, is this a hoax? Is this why would Disney be calling me? And so I called back and said, hi, Mrs. Bundock, this is, I think his name is Danny from Disney head office in London. I'm really excited to tell you, you entered a competition last year and you've won the first prize, which is an all expenses paid trip to Disney World in Florida. It's your passes, it's your flights, your accommodation, it's everything. And I was just like, oh my goodness, I know I teach this. This is what I tell people, but to kind of receive that, it was just nuts, because I was periscoping regularly at this time. And I told people constantly, I want to take the kids to Disney World. Look at my vision board. This is what I'm doing. I spoke about Disney quite a lot. And then it was a very, very surreal moment. And because, and it was literally 10 days after Christmas that I was that close from telling the children at Christmas. And even now to this day, when I kind of think about that, I think, oh my goodness. So what happened was I'd actually entered a contest the previous year. And I do remember doing it because my Disney radar was on high alert at all times. And it was at a children's shoe shop. I bought the kids new shoes for school. And as at the checkout, I could see there was like a contest, win a trip to Disney World. So, of course, put my name and address in, popped it in the box, didn't think about it. And several months later, that was the competition that I'd won. And there we go.
Your husband? Did your husband go with you?
Okay, so here's the thing. I was kind of umming and ahhing because obviously we're separated, but ultimately I just thought it would be, and, we had parted amicably. And I said to him, it seemed like the right thing. The kids really wanted their dad to be there. And I didn't really want to take two children to America, to Disney World on my own. So yes, he came and he loved it. He loved it. We had a really good time. And everything that I saw in my vision pretty much happened. Kids flung the door open. They were jumping up and down on the bed. And as we walked through the gates of Disney, I was wearing those shorts and it was humid and I was sweating, and it was exactly like as I saw it in my vision. It was a very, very weird moment. Now, I want to add one other thing to this story. So, as I shared earlier, every night my daughter had to visualize, she visualized being at Disney, and my son visualized being a mascot for Tottenham Hotspur. Now, while we were at while we were at Disneyland, I had another phone call. It was a message. And my son had been picked out of this ballot, because this is how you get to become a Spurs mascot, out of thousands and thousands of children, to be a mascot for Tottenham Hotspur. And they'd picked the game and said, we picked Ben's name out for this particular game. And it was just like, is this really happening, in Disneyland? Bonnie gets her wish granted. Ben gets his wish granted. It's just like, this stuff is just nuts. It really, you could not make it up. And even my ex-husband, who's the biggest skeptic of all of this, he even looked at me like, you some kind of like witch or something. Because he said, I wanted to be a Spurs mascot for 40 years and I never got picked. Whereas it's funny because my husband would be of the mindset, my ex-husband would have been of, don't get your hopes up. These things will never happen. You've got such a tiny, slim chance of it ever happening to you. Don't raise your hopes up. And I just said to my son, just visualize, imagine, and I never said to him, it's going to happen. Because I think this is a bit where other people say, well, how do you manage your children's expectations? How are they ever going to learn to cope with disappointment when they don't get what they want? And I have the immediate, the answer for that is that you will either get the goal, or you will get the lesson, or you will get something even better. Sometimes, children do have to kind of like, they learn lessons. And, I love talking to my children about their failures and when things go wrong, because this gives us the perfect lesson time to say, okay, actually, well, why did it go wrong? What could we do better next time? And usually they know, why things didn't work out. But I always say, do you know what? It's because you weren't meant to have that experience just yet, and there is something better coming along for you.
Yeah, I feel like in my life, the older I get, the more I can look back and really be reflective on the things that have happened. And everything that I, at the moment, thought was like, this is the worst thing that could have ever happened, I look back and it's actually the best thing, because it led to something so much better. And so as I get older, I have to just, if something doesn't go my way, I'm trusting that, okay, the universe does have my back. I am going to, whatever, this didn't work out for a particular reason. Yeah. And so it's okay.
Yeah, I could tell you, there've been many times in my life where things didn't go my way, things didn't work out, where, I experienced some really, really tough times. But again, as you say, with reflection, there was always a reason that happened. And, there was always a lesson to be learned. And things are always working for you. And I think, that's one of my mantras in life, that, everything is always working out for me and I'm exactly where I need to be. I tell myself that every time when things appear to be going wrong, that everything's always working out for me and I'm exactly where I need to be.
That's really, really beautiful. So for our estheticians that are listening, I know that there's a lot of you I see over in the Estheticians Connect Facebook group that are struggling with, I need more clients, I need more, instead of focusing on this lack of what you don't have, really put the attention of what you want for your life and what you want for your business, and really focus on that and take action, but if all your energy is really focused on that, I don't have enough clients, I'm not making enough money, I'm not living the life that I want to live, it can continue to go in that way. What's it going to hurt to shift your mindset? The worst thing it's like, what's the worst that's going to happen if you're thinking positive? Yeah, you're still going to have to go and take action. You can't just think about it and sit in your chair and expect, if you build it, they will come. But if you're thinking positive, if you are, if you're in that light, positive mindset, more ideas can come to you. You have better energy when people come in. It's like that misery loves company. You don't want to be around the person that's all like, wah, 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 like, yeah. So it's not, even if you are a skeptic, it's not, what do you have to lose? That was really my approach to getting into all of this. So, anything else you want to add before?
Yeah, the final thing I would add to that is that it does take practice. It's not an overnight thing. You may experience kind of small wins to begin with, but then, things may appear to be going wrong again. But it is practice. It's just like, eating healthily or going to the gym or, having a good skincare regime. You can't just do these things once or even for a week and expect permanent change in your life. It's something you need to do consistently, and even to the point where I feel like I'm at a pretty advanced level with this, but still I have days when I slip. But it's monitoring my thoughts, it's monitoring the language that I speak, but also really monitoring the way I'm feeling. And if I'm feeling down and a bit stuck, it's what can I do right now to shift myself out of this negative state to get myself, back up again. It could be taking the dog for a walk or switching everything off and doing something completely different. It could be, having dinner with girlfriends. The most important thing, and this is what I say to all my clients, and it sounds really simplistic, but the most important thing you can do is to feel good. And by that, I don't mean, drinking wine and watching Netflix, because that for me, I think it's about masking what's going on. But, what can you do to raise your vibration and to feel good? Because that's when, as you said, Daniela, the clarity comes, the ideas and the inspiration comes, and then you can take your next step, because the action will lead to more clarity, and you'll just build up a snowball of momentum where good things come. You'll attract the right person into your path. The right book will land in your lap. The mentor will appear. Magical things really do start happening, but you've got to get your vibration in that space first.
Awesome. Well, this has been an amazing interview, an amazing conversation. I believe that our listeners will get so much out of this, so much positivity. And I really hope that it helps you guys listening, that it helps you and changes your energy and gives you some inspiration to go out there and get what you want and be positive, be happy. That's the most important thing.
Absolutely.
So we will catch you on the next episode.